Hey everyone, welcome back to the 8158 podcast Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest has walked both sides of the line, from answering frantic 911 calls to offering calm and healing as a licensed therapist. We're honored to welcome Emilee, a former dispatcher with deep roots in law enforcement and a heart for the helpers. Emilee's journey is raw and real, from losing her college housing at 18 and stepping into the world of dispatch to facing heartbreaking line of duty and self inflicted calls without the mental health support she needed. Now she's turning that pain into purpose, working with first responders across North Carolina as a trauma informed therapist. We talk about what it's like to ride along, what departments get wrong when it comes to crisis support, and why no one should have to carry the weight of the job alone. This one's for the front line, the ones who show up even when it hurts. Let's get into it.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 8158 Podcast Stories of Sacrifice. Today we have Emilee. She is a therapist and a former 911 dispatcher. So please, everybody, give Emilee a warm welcome, and hopefully you have something to take away from her story. Hello, Emilee. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing pretty good. We got a good week yesterday. It's great. Okay. So can you tell us a little about your journey into the world of mental health and public safety?
Sure. So I got into public safety back in 2008 when the market crashed. We couldn't afford tuition anymore, and I had to get a real job. So, of course, you think, okay, what's the best job with the best benefits? And that's kind of what you go for. So that's what I did, and went for a city job. I worked at the city of Durham, doing 911 dispatch, and loved it there. Went in and out of that world several times as I had kids, and ended up taking a call at the most recent center that I worked at that was distressing, and decided that based on that, not only did my community in general need help, and more mental health support than we have here, but my first responders, who went to that scene and went to many other similar scenes that year, needed help, more help than they were getting. So that's the nutshell of why I got into therapy.
Okay. Uh, so prior to being a 911 dispatcher, you had pursued your career in tourism and management. Is that why you had to leave that job because of the market and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I was in school, so I was at NC State, doing my major in that. And when the market went down, my dad lost his job, and my mom was battling some health issues. So there just wasn't the finances there to continue that journey for me. And so that's kind of how that pivot happened.
Okay. So what really drove you to the 911 dispatcher, just other than the benefits and all that stuff?
So what drove me to it was I thought it was challenging. I've got a family history of first responders and military, so almost everyone in my family has served in some capacity, um, in one of those roles. No one, other than one of my uncles, has ever served in dispatch. And when he did it, it was one of those things where you were the jailer and the dispatcher type thing. So I didn't really even know that about my family history at the time. I just knew that I wanted to help and knew that I needed to do something that was going to put forth that part of me that I was not handling very well at the time.
Yeah. So if you don't mind sharing, what was that first year like stepping in as a dispatcher at such a young age, especially with your housing situation and everything that was going on?
Yeah, so my uncle was military, and I was staying with him. And then when he retired, I had to find new housing. So going into that, I was innocent and blind. I lived, admittedly, a very sheltered life up until that point and didn't really know much about how the real world was. So the adrenaline rush, of course, we all love the adrenaline rush, but um, I got exposed to a lot of things very early on that kind of stuck with me throughout the years. Um, my first year was a lot of training, so I got to hang out with firefighters, paramedics, and law enforcement officers. We had to ride so many hours, with them as part of our training. That's the first 6 months or so, if not longer. And then from there, it was all just learning. They had us start slow on alarm lines and then kind of work our way up to taking actual 911 calls. Not that alarm lines aren't important, but usually they're not as emergent.
Um, Now, you had mentioned doing some dispatch on and off for about 5 years or so. Can you share a few memorable or challenging calls that stick with you?
Absolutely. So I'll share a funny one first because I could use a laugh today. So we had this person who was calling 911 from a disconnected cell phone, and we had a GPS ping, as all cell phones do. We know where you're at. Don't call 911 and hang up. That's my PSA for today. So this person called. You could hear Jerry Springer in the background, and he insisted that he was part of a drug deal gone bad. And the more I probed him for more information, the more odd the information got. So, keeping in mind that you could hear the television in the background, he proceeds to tell us that he is attached to a tree with an adult toy. And, you ask him for his clothing description, and he gives you, random pieces of clothing. And it's just one of those things. I look back and I laugh. Because it was funny that he gave that to me. It was also funny that, I was 18, 19 years old taking these types of calls, and I didn't even know those things existed at that point in life. And then, karma got to come back around. They found the person because of the GPS ping and arrested the person for misuse of 911. So it was nice to see that karma come back.
They said you had another story that you wanted to share that maybe not so funny.
Yeah, so and this is the story that got me into mental health. I'm going to do my best, but I'm also going to prepare myself with tissues. So I was working 911 in a small center, and picked up the phone about 2:00 in the morning or so, to this person screaming hysterically, crying. I wasn't able to understand what they were saying. I got them to slow down. I was able to give a GPS location, and then confirm that when they slowed down to a normal talking speed. They proceeded to tell me that they were going to kill themselves, and that they had a plan, they had the means, they had the intent to do so, and that I was the last call that they were going to make because they didn't want to call their parents. They didn't want their parents to find them. So they told me the plan and proceeded to follow through with the plan. During the call, I heard two shots. I'm trying to be sure I don't get us banned here. Heard two shots, and the first one was the one that they told me would be for the animal that was in the house with them. And then the second was the self-inflicted injury that ended up causing them to lose their life. So I stayed on the phone until I could hear my law enforcement officers get through the door and got the confirmation that they had made contact. And then, I sat there and processed what I had just heard. I couldn't really leave. And all these calls were coming in because this person had posted on social media that they were going to unalive. And so all these calls were coming in, and I couldn't tell anybody anything. I already knew what had happened, but I couldn't give the information out, and I had to treat each call like a new call, which really pushed the boundaries of re-traumatizing very fast. That night, I let my supervisor know that I wanted to attend a debriefing, which is, for those that don't know, what we do when there's a critical incident. And I got a phone call the next morning saying that the director of EMS didn't think that I needed to attend. So I was not afforded that opportunity, but instead I was given the phone number of a peer who was very helpful, but the situation that they experienced wasn't the same as mine or similar to mine. So they were helpful, but not helpful at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to even be able to talk about this without getting upset. So that was the turning point in my career where I said, I'm not going to let this keep happening, not just for my people on the road, but for my community. There has to be a change. So I went back to school at that point, from emergency and disaster management to disaster and collective trauma mental health.
Right. That's pretty honorable that you were able to do that, because there definitely is a need for mental health specialists who specialize in first responder mental health, especially. It's unfortunate that you had to deal with such a critical incident and then not be acknowledged with your own mental health.
It's tough.
That's not right.
It's not, and it's tough, and it was tough to finish the shift, and it was tough to go back the next night. And it's the biggest thing I want to stress is that it's okay to be okay. And if you experience something like this and you don't get the help that you need, it's okay to call out of work. It's okay to miss that next shift, because your mental health is important and what keeps us able to help the public. So
right. if you're not healthy, then how can you help somebody else?
Exactly.
So in that line of work, in that field, um, were you a part of any related on uh, in the line of duty deaths or anything that changed how you viewed mental health in this field?
Um, I was not part of any line of duty deaths, thankfully. I was part of several um, critical line of duty injuries. So while I was in Durham, I took a call from someone and heard them firing a gunshot. At the same time, I heard my officer knocking on the door. And the officer ended up being shot in the stomach in between his vest and his duty belt. Luckily, he survived that. And from what I know, his mom made him give up law enforcement, and he's living his best life with his family. And then, other than that, I did take a firefighter mayday. Um, so I was working a structure fire, and my units came over and gave a mayday call asking for additional help and manpower. But luckily, none of them were seriously injured or killed in the line of duty.
No, that's good. I'm glad that they all made it out safely and that they weren't injured.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome. Uh, so, kind of going back to that, CSI debriefing where you weren't allowed. How did the lack of support affected you, you personally and professionally?
So personally, it's been 2 years now, 2.5 years since the incident. And personally, it still haunts me. That was the longest 4.5 minutes of my life. Um, the events that happened afterwards with some of my officers and issues that they faced um, related to their own health was extremely impactful to me personally. And so I spent a lot of time in therapy, a lot of time talking to peers um, to be able to process and move on from that. I have, on a personal level, taken some suicide prevention classes. In addition to what I've learned through my degree program, um, I've taken some additional coursework to just kind of help um, me feel more comfortable talking bluntly about that type of thing. And then professionally, I knew I had to change something. And even if I can't change the whole world, which is what I really wanted to do, I can change a little piece of the world. And hopefully, my little piece of the world changes another piece of the world. Um, so, professionally, I went from majoring in disaster and um, emergency management to disaster and collective trauma social work, which is radically different. Went from learning about hazard safety and analyzing things and looking at rivers to see where they were going to flood at to helping people through their mental health challenges after major life-changing events.
So, your connection to first responders and its culture, you come from a law enforcement family. Obviously, you spoke about military background and stuff like that. Um, how did that influence your decision to work with first responders now as a therapist?
So my family background, um, my first, and my uncle will hate me for this. My first experience with PTSD was when my uncle had a PTSD nightmare. Um, and I'll save him the embarrassment from the full story, but he had a PTSD nightmare that kind of exposed me to all of that for the first time. And I didn't understand it because I was 18. I didn't know what PTSD was. I didn't know what real mental health was. And so looking back on all of those experiences now have helped me be able to recognize signs and symptoms in other people. I don't, mental health isn't something like that you talk about in this profession at all. There's that big stigma around it. And so my family members never talked about their mental health and how what they were doing on the job impacted anything. So their impacts on me as far as deciding to go into the first responder mental health weren't very strong. It was more of what I experienced as a result of being a first responder and seeing the lack of resources for us.
Right. Which there is a huge lack of resources. And it's pretty sad that we don't have enough resources for our first responders to take care of their mental health. Especially with that stigma of mental health and first responders culture.
Yeah, the stigma it's hard to overcome, especially when you work with the older generations, the 15, 20, 30-year-old guys who have been a first responder, or not 30-year-old guys, but people who have been on the department for 30 years. That's the hard one to break, and they just retrain all of that negativity right back into the young guys who are just starting out their careers.
Right. So it just creates that vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Something that has to be broken.
It
Hopefully
does.
someday it does. That's kind of like our aim, is to break that stigma and to allow people a safe space to kind of come out and talk about their issues, so that that stigma can be broken.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of older fellers that were tough and didn't talk about their emotions, and I totally understand that side of it. There's also the other side that they're just too proud to get help.
Yeah.
They figure, oh, we've been doing it this long, and
Yeah. We're just fine, so that means you're just fine. That whole mentality, needs to go by the wayside. And I've got a lot of things going that we'll talk about in a little bit that I'm really excited to share. That will be, I think, beneficial for our first responder community.
Sounds awesome. So you had gone on a ride along. Did your experience doing the ride along during your internship shape the way you counsel first responders today?
Yeah, so the ride-alongs that I did when I was doing my internship for my MSW, um, those ride-alongs really helped show me the stigma and show me that the only way that I'm going to get to these people, the people in the field, is not to sugarcoat it and give all the fluff that all your regular therapist, you spend 45 minutes explaining your job and then 15 minutes starting to talk about your problem, and then, oh, your hour's over. So the way that I've learned to approach it based off of what I learned in the field during my ride-alongs with the fire department was that I just needed to be direct, and all of the frou-frou stuff, the breathing exercises are important, don't get me wrong, but I can't sit and talk about breathing exercises for a whole hour or they're going to be sleeping. So just learning like how to keep them engaged in conversation, but also how to make things relatable to them. Um, so one thing that I tell people is you're, you weren't born with anxiety. Just like a fire truck wasn't made with an oxygen tank or a water hose already on it, that was added later. You weren't born with anxiety. So I use metaphors like that to really relate it to an aspect of their job, something that they can realize, hey, yeah, she's right. Like, we got that new Pierce fire truck, that new fancy 2026 fire truck, and it came with no tools on it, and we had to put all the tools on it. It just really helps those things kind of cement into their heads.
Kind of reshape or reframe their thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, in becoming a therapist, what inspired you to officially pursue counseling after all you had seen and experienced?
Um, it was my experience. That call that I was talking about was like the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. I had been trying to find a way to get involved with peer support groups and peer support networks for a while, and just I wasn't really getting the traction or support that I was hoping for there. So when all of this started happening and I started looking up, mental health degrees for first responders, even in 2023, when I started looking this up, there weren't degrees that specifically focused on military or first responder mental health.
We will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most. Behind every badge is a story, and behind every story is a sacrifice. This is the 8158 podcast, where we honor the lives and legacies of first responders and their families. If our mission speaks to your heart, if these stories move you like they move us, join us on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you'll get ad-free listening, exclusive merchandise, behind-the-scenes content, and video episodes only available to our patrons. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you can be a part of it. Support us at patreon.com/8158podcast. Let's continue to share the stories that deserve to be heard.
And so now I'm seeing those pop up, which makes my heart happy. But the closest that we were able to, or that I was able to find, was the collective trauma. And that's just trauma experienced by large groups of people. And last time I checked, first responders are a large group of people who all experience similar traumas. So that influenced the program that I chose to go to. But it really was a culmination of a lot of different experiences. Both, we had taken on my shift probably 4 calls where people were either found after they had completed suicide or my call. And it was teenagers. It was high schoolers. It was people with their whole life ahead of them. And I already knew here in Western North Carolina, we're in a healthcare apartheid. There's the healthcare that we have here, physical health, mental health, all of it is extremely limited. Um, and so when I went to go get in with a therapist, the first therapist that I could get in with was a 6-month wait.
Wow.
And that's just me as an everyday person. That's not me, as a first responder. And so I realized even if I couldn't go into, if I got through the program and realized that first responder stories and therapy were too hard for me, I would still have a home in mental health here because it's lacking so much. But thankfully, like I said, through therapy, I was able to get past a lot of the things that gave me problems. And so I'm able to sit through therapy sessions and really help people meaningfully. And I don't cry. I can make it through a therapy session, somebody else's therapy session, and not cry. And that's huge because when first responders go to therapy, if their therapist cries, then they walk out and they're like, okay, did I just give my therapist PTSD? Is this therapist right for me? And so it's so important to me, and I'm so thankful that I am able to move on past those traumas.
Right. What is it like now being on the other side? Now that you're supporting those who are still in the field?
It's really rewarding, to see my peers, and they will always be my people. My job as a dispatcher was to make sure they made it home at the end of their shift. I don't see my job as a therapist any different. It is my job to make sure that they make it home, that they get home and they're safe at home. So as far as supporting those people, it's a blessing. I love every interaction I get to have with my people in the field. I have several people that I provide support to, that sometimes they just need an ear, like a crisis line. They don't need therapy. They've got somebody for that, but they need a first responder who knows the life. And so it's an honor to be trusted by my peers to help.
Yeah, they need somebody that knows that side of things that can help them, not just somebody who's read things from a book.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody
Exactly.
who's lived that life, somebody who's been through it and understands it. You can't help
And understands. It's important that you understand all of it, not just the shift work part or,
right.
My cousin was a this or whatnot, but to actually understand it from, I sat behind the computer and I know the computer system you're running and I recognize this and radio traffic, that having that connection really helps build a good therapeutic relationship.
Right. Exactly. So, what are some of the most common struggles that you see among first responders that you counsel?
So there are two. The first one is PTSD, and we're talking flashbacks, avoiding places that remind or things that remind them of the event, um, any type of visceral reaction to the event or similar events. That's the biggest one. And then the second biggest one is that my first responders self-medicate to get away from the the symptoms of the PTSD. And so working on being able to unblend from those parts that are causing us to feel that, and then work towards a peaceful resolution, if you will, with those parts so that they can live, a full life without the substances, without the nightmares and flashbacks. That's a lot of these things are intertwined as far as that goes as well.
So now, in talking about resources and support, especially in your area, you're planning to share a list of resources. Can you talk about a few that you feel are especially helpful?
Absolutely. So first of all, there is, as far as getting immediate help, First Responder Peer Support Network is a 24-hour peer support line. It's ran out of Eastern North Carolina, and they are retired firefighters, law enforcement, and EMS that are there and ready to answer the phone, that know more resources, but also know how to help, how to help their peers and responders who are calling.
Okay.
And that, do you want me to give that phone number?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so that phone number is 833-377-7648.
Okay, so that number is 833-377-7648.
It is, yeah. And then the other one, if you don't want to call, you're not in a place to talk, you don't want, you're laying in bed next to your spouse and you don't want them to know that you need help for whatever reason you feel that that's appropriate. There's a line that you can text called Next Rung, like a rung on a ladder.
Right.
And that number is 833-698-7864. And you can text what you need. So if you need peer support, you text the word support. If you need counseling, you text the word counseling. And if you are looking for help with substance use, you text the word treatment.
Okay. The next run is a text line, and that number is 833-698-7864.
Correct. Yeah.
You had some more to share for that?
Yeah. So the other one that I want to share is very near and dear to my heart because I've worked closely with them, is a program out in Deerfield Beach, Florida called Shatterproof. The guy who runs it, his name is Alex. He's amazing to work with our first responders. If your health insurance has a deductible, sometimes they can get you a scholarship for the deductible, as long as you're active with a fire department or squad of some sort, even if you're not full-time. And their phone number is 833-685-7542.
And that is called Shatterproof?
It's called Shatterproof, and they are first responder only, so it's dorm-style living. Everybody has their own room, but they share like a kitchen area. And it is a first responder only program, which is super important.
So it's kind of like an in-house type of counseling.
It's inpatient, so you can go down there and you can get brain mapping. You can get ketamine treatment, EMDR, all sorts of therapies to help process that. It's a 6 to 8 week program. And it really helps you also build a network with the people that you start and graduate with.
So for anyone listening in North Carolina who might be struggling at all, how can they get in touch with you or TLC counseling services?
So I have a first responder specific email, and that is resilientfrontlines@tlctherapycenter.com.
TLCcenter.com.
tlctherapycenter.com. Yeah. And I also have a office phone number and an emergency phone number for myself as well.
Okay.
So the office phone number is area code 704-269-6068.
Okay,
and that's my office number. And the crisis number is 828-290-9125. And those lines, both of those lines are also textable. So my request is that if anybody needed to get in contact with me, they text me first to let me know that they're calling, because spam callers get us all, and even my work cell phone number is not immune to those. And for people who are not in North Carolina, there is a legislation going into effect. So in 2027, I will be able to serve many, many other states. I think we were going to talk about that too. So still, feel free to hang on to my information, and as that processes, I'm happy to connect with those people as well.
Yeah, we talked about that in the pre-interview, that in 2027 they were going to do cross-state licensing. That could change immensely, like for a lot of people. So
yeah,
that out across the country.
It will increase access drastically to care, especially for first responders. We're a little bit limited right now, but I'm really excited that this is going through, because that means that somebody from, let's say, Virginia or South Carolina could call me, and they could say, hey, there's not a first responder specific therapist in my area. And I would be able to say, no problem. I got you. I can help you. So I wish it went into effect sooner, but I guess those things take time.
So say, for instance, if there's somebody outside of North Carolina that was requesting help, what would you recommend they do, being that they're not in the state?
So the first responder peer support network, that first number that I provided, they have teams in many other states. So they are able to help, and they are peer support. They have a list of resources for therapists in multiple states. The 988 number is always good. They have a list of resources. And there are some other national lines that I will share in that list with you. But any number that is on that list is for anybody in any of the U.S. or Territories. There we go. My words weren't wording.
Like math wasn't mathing, the words weren't wording.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you were talking about you had something very exciting to share. Now, was that the legislation you were talking about, or was that something else that you had in mind?
No, that's actually something else. So I am joining forces with that first responder peer support network.
Okay.
So I will be, they have some therapists that they refer to, but I will be one of the therapists that they refer to. I'm also working on joining forces with a couple other groups to help give insight and build information for them to be able to support first responders in other states.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, it's always good to have that extra support, and when you have uh, other places to refer and to kind of reach out and be able to collaborate with other people. Uh, the more knowledge that you get and the more experiences you get, the more you can help people.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty awesome.
That's it. And here at TLC, we're actually working on building our own peer support team. We're going to have a peer support specialist specifically for spouses of first responders, which is also very important and an overlooked population. We're going to have at least one peer support provider for first responders. I've got another person who is finishing up her counseling degree program. She was a previous first responder. She's going to join the team, so we are going to be growing and ready to go.
Awesome. Sounds pretty awesome. Now, in wrapping up, if you could go back and talk to yourself during your early days in dispatch, what would you say to yourself?
That's a loaded question. And I've thought about this question for about a week now, if I'm being honest with you. Because had you asked me this question 4 years ago, it would have been stay with Durham. It sucks. The schedule is tough, but stay there because it'll be worth it and you can retire young. Now, after being through what I've been through the past couple years, it is a reminder to myself to go back to some of my great grandmother's words, which were, you can't take care of anybody else if you don't take care of you first. So it's not selfish to put yourself first because you need to be there for other people.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can't be there for other people if you are not healthy yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
What's one of the things that you would want every dispatcher, officer, firefighter, EMS to know that's listening?
There's so many things, so many messages. First of all, if you are considering hurting yourself, reach out for help. Just because you reach out for help doesn't mean that you're weak. It also doesn't mean that you are going to be judged or that somebody's going to try to talk you out of it. The goal is to stay safe, and that may be to stay safe forever, or it may be to stay safe for now. And so we want to connect with people who are having those troubles, because even if you can't stay safe forever, or you can't promise me that you can stay safe forever, let's at least really think this through. There's always a third option. It's don't give up. That's the rest of that message is don't give up, because the hard days aren't going to be every day.
Exactly. There's always going to be a hard day, and whatever choice you make in the moment, Uh, hopefully, it's not your last. Hopefully, you make the wise decision, and not make an irrational decision that may, finish the rest of your being on this earth.
Absolutely.
You know. So, where can our listeners follow you or get support or to learn more about your work? I know we got your email and stuff, but do you
Mhm.
have a page to follow, or are you on social media or anything like that?
So right now I have a TikTok, and it's at Emilee, my first name, Emilee underscore 828. Um, I don't have a Facebook page set up yet, but they can actually learn more about me and read my full bio on our website, which is tlctherapycenter.com. And there is a Facebook page coming soon, but there are only so many hours in a day. And sleep is self care.
Yes, very important. Sleep is absolutely very important.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, I mean, it's sad to see that, you went from a very sheltered life to this humongous, catastrophic chaos of a world that we live in today. I mean, I
It,
couldn't even imagine.
it's the changes that I have went through as a person, but also just the change in the outlook on the world is shocking. And if I went back and looked at all the things I believed then, it would be like the same idea of me looking at Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. Um, my beliefs at 18, 19, and 20 were so immature, I guess, that it's difficult to even comprehend that.
I can imagine. Yeah, growing up as a kid, I was not a sheltered child. I've seen and heard everything by the time I was old enough to understand how to speak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I couldn't even imagine what you went through. I mean, I've already seen a lot before I was 11 years old, so uh, it's kind of hard to even fathom being sheltered and not knowing that kind of side of things and how the world works and stuff like that.
You develop dark humor very quickly.
Yes,
And I use a lot of dark humor in therapy. It's just second nature now. But that's one thing that came about was a lot of dark humor um, and being able to make light even of the hardest situations.
right. Unfortunately, you're still here to tell your story and that you have taken action, which is definitely needed and very appreciated. You are taking action to help out your brothers and sisters in the first responder world. Um, yeah, we definitely need that. And I wish there was more people out there that would, do that. I know there are some, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very limited this far.
I hope that it changes. We need help in large ways. My original goal was to be able to do more ride-alongs and things like that, but I'm really trying to focus on helping as many people as I can, versus being able to do some of the things that I did in my internship. Maybe I'll get there one day, but right now it's just about helping as many of my people as I can.
It's very commendable. And yeah, it's definitely needed. We definitely appreciate having you on here. and sharing your story. Hopefully people will hear the story, and with the amount of outreach that there is, they can get a hold of you, especially in North Carolina. It's unfortunate that the national level of licensing hasn't come about yet, but hopefully soon, in the next couple of years. Of course, you know how politics are; everything's
Yeah.
slow. Unless they
Yeah.
want it to happen, then if they're making money off of it, they're gonna do it right away. But
Yeah, it's approved. So the legislation is approved. Now it's just figuring out how to license everybody, and I guess more the logistical
yeah,
side of the bureaucratic BS.
yeah, all the red tape.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we definitely appreciate you being on here. That's all we have for now. Uh, Hopefully, we can have you back on here later in the future to see where you're at and to kind of get a gist of how your therapy sessions, not in particular, but how they are successful in helping first responders overcome their issues and how they are surviving instead of
Absolutely.
taking their own
Um,
lives.
yeah, I would love to come back, and I appreciate you having me on tonight. But I would love to come back and talk more about the therapy side of things when you have a chance.
That would be pretty awesome. I'm sure we could schedule something like that, and we can dive more into the therapy sessions if you want. Um, it might be helpful for people to understand that side of it as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.